The Cumberland County Commissioners Workshop meeting May 18, 2005. We rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everybody. Call this meeting to order and open the floor for public comment. Seeing none, we move on to item number 3. I'll call on Anna Yelp of CPC. Request for a letter of support for Central PA Conservancy grant application to the Department of Community and Economic Development's Greenways, Trails, and Recreation.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Anna Yelp for the Central Pennsylvania Conservancy, and on behalf of my board, I would like to formally request your support today of our proposal to acquire lots 1 and 2 of the former Richard Bergune Watercress Farm on South Spring Garden Street in Carlisle. The 2 lots total 33 acres. They're located on the south branch of the LaTorte Spring Run. It's right where the 4 springs that feed it are located. I have a copy of the map of the subdivision plan, and I have 3 copies, so if you'd like to check that out. I'm not sure if we've received it. The properties have very special conservation value. They're designated as an exceptional value wetland by DEP, a Class A cold water trout stream by PFBC. It's listed as a PA Wild and Scenic River. CPC has been trying to protect this property for the last 10 years or so, and in 2007, we were successful in raising grant monies to acquire all of Richard Bergune's holdings in Cumberland County. And the offer at that time was declined, though. And since then, those properties have been subdivided, and we've been working with the seller now for the last 2 months on a 2-year purchase option, which we've scheduled to sign and record next week. It's to acquire the 2 highest conservation value lots, and that are listed now for a total of $309,000 for both. The 2 years will allow time for CPC to pursue the funding from a variety of sources, including DCED, DCNR, and private donations that we've been starting to identify. We've gotten some broad community support so far for this acquisition. We have support from South Middleton Township. We're presenting this evening at the board meeting for the LaTorte Regional Authority. We've been in discussion with Cumberland Valley Travel Limited, PFBC, Dickinson College. We have a support letter from Senator Vance for our grant proposal as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. I'll take a copy of it now.
Hey, Kurt, can we look at
I know where it is.
Can we look at that frog
That's the one.
and then
Yeah.
the bridge you're fixing down here maybe?
We'd gladly do that, yeah.
And just for clarity, I mean, and I think initially, the way it was presented, it was in Carlisle. It is in South Middleton Township.
It's in South, yeah, I'm sorry,
And-
yeah.
And
South
my
Middleton
understanding
Township.
is the South Middleton Township supervisors are also supportive of the
Yes.
proposal. Okay. And what is the grant application? How much are you actually looking to?
Well, the grant ceiling is $250,000, and so our funding gap then is $60,000, and so we will be bringing more than the required match, which is 15%.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 4, call on Bob Magrosa for recommendation for approval of the Cumberland County voluntary separation plan for additional eligible law.
Commissioners, I'll be referring to this 3-page presentation that I provided to you. On Monday, the VSP work group is making the recommendation that you approve the Cumberland County Employee Voluntary Separation Benefit offering for the additional eligibles as it was rolled out. Just to go back and revisit the history briefly, in January of 2015, the Board of Commissioners approved our initial VSP offering based on meeting our targets. 16 people were excluded from that offering that would have otherwise met the qualifications, because they were ineligible at that time because they were covered by the petition for representation. Subsequently, they were removed from the petition, and on March 30th, the board authorized open enrollment for those 16 individuals under the same criteria as the original plan members. We did establish that the second offering's target savings was, we were looking at a projected savings of about $15,000 over 3 years. Open enrollment ended on Monday, June 1st. One individual enrolled, and the estimated 3-year savings for that individual is $6,600. Our recommendation, the VSP work group, is that the Board of Commissioners approve the offering for the additional eligibles based on this one individual. Based on the individual would have been part of the original offering had they have not been under that petition at the time. The timing of the two offerings were very close to each other, and most of the upfront work has already been done on the initial offering and the cost. So really, the amount of time and staff effort was minimal in this offering. And quite frankly, we felt it would have been unfair to just eliminate that one person based on how close the two offerings were. And we really looked at it as part of the original offering. So that would be our recommendation.
I would just add that in speaking to the people who were part of that original excluded group, a commitment to follow through on providing them with access to the same benefits as everybody else once their situation was resolved. Are there any comments or questions for Bob?
I will add that by doing this, we're quite comfortable we are still within all legal and regulatory parameters that you have to follow for these types of things.
All right, thank you, Bob. Item number 5, on Annabeth, discussion of resolution 2015-14 regarding budget adjustment.
Drug and alcohol is requesting to increase revenues and expenses by $97,455.58 for additional inpatient and outpatient services. This adjustment has several different funding sources, and the sinking fund is increasing revenues and expenses by $25,000 for the pictometry project. This is for the actual cash payment coming out of the debt service funds. MHIDD is increasing MH revenues and expenses by $180,278 based on the state's first re-budget allocation. This will have an impact of $14,578 to the general fund. The first two resolutions have no impact to the general fund, and the reason I'm doing the pictometry budget adjustment early is so that if the contract is signed, we're ready to make the payment as the agreement with the state. Any questions?
Thanks, David. Item number 6, Frank Garcia, discussion of the cooperative agreement under Title 4-D of the Social Security Act. Frank?
Morning, everyone. I'm requesting approval of the cooperative agreement of the Social Security Act as is provided and has been negotiated by the AOPC, the Department of Human Services, CCAP, and by the DRAP organization. This document is basically the Bible that spells out all the responsibilities of the county, the courts, the domestic relations office in the child support arena. Approval of this, and it's a significant document because Sandy has them sitting there in front of you, so if you want to take some time to read them, I'm sure you'll be very bored, but approval will shorten the federal funding of the 66% plus unique performance bonuses that we get in.
So, Frank, is this new or is this a revised?
Now, this is negotiated every 5 years. This one will go effect October 1st and will run through 2020.
Any big changes, any significant changes or additions?
A couple small changes.
Any other questions for Frank? Splendid in his springtime.
I could read it to you, it's like.
Could you do, I can simultaneous Spanish translation. All right,
Questions?
Thank you so much for that offer, Frank. We'll pass.
Thanks.
Item number 7, Justin Smith, a request for letter of support from Cumberland County and Perry County to partner in a joint contract with Tom.
Morning, Commissioners. Staff has prepared a letter from Cumberland County to Perry County regarding the imagery that we plan to fly in 2016 for geometry, offered regional cooperation. Joint flight could save us each county approximately 10%. The letter goes over some benefits and how Cumberland County is willing to act as a fiduciary county. And we are requesting your signatures on this letter to be sent to Perry County Commissioners and with some information that our staffs will cooperate with their staffs on further technical specifications.
So Justin, this is a continuation of our discussion, previous discussion, that you're sort of following through on the commitment to see if we could get a better pricing by going in on this with another county.
Right, and I've been further working on with some other counties. I've talked to Berks County. The East Central Task Force is also flying photometry, and I've just started a conversation with them to see if we can jump on their flight as well. It's for a larger region and higher cost savings.
For next year?
For 2016.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, if we know if Perry County agrees to this, that the two counties will save $52,000 or something in that neighborhood. So if we can get other counties involved with it too, we might be able to save some additional funding. So thank you for putting the letter together. Appreciate it, Justin. Looks good to me.
Any other comments or questions for Justin? Thank you, Justin. Turn it over to Sandy for contracts and agreements.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning, everyone. We'll begin by calling on Penny Brown from the Bureau of Elections to discuss the agreement between Penske Truck Leasing and Shippensburg First Church of God. Penny?
Good morning, Commissioners. This Penske Truck Leasing is to rent one truck for the special election that will be held in August. We will only need one truck. And the second is an agreement with Shippensburg First Church of God. We've used that church for ages. They are just now formalizing the agreement at their request for us to sign the contract.
Any questions for Penny? Thank you, Penny. Next, Lynette will be discussing 2 agreements for CNRC, one with Flora Health Services, and the other one is that credentialing questionnaire.
Yes, on behalf of Claremont, I'm requesting approval for the VARA Health Services. They provide the wound care consults and doctoring in our facility. It is a no-cost contract. They're charging the patient's insurance, but it's just a continuation of services that we have been able to provide to our residents in the past. The second item is Aetna. It is the credentialing. It's just basically a periodic review of our insurances, our accreditations, our licenses, and they are verifying that all of that is current, and this is just requires a signature. Any questions?
Thank you, Lynette. Next, Sylvia is here to discuss agreements for MHIVD for fiscal year 2014-15 for early intervention and fiscal year 2014-15 mental health. Sylvia?
Good morning. These are all contract addendums to current contracts for fiscal year 14-15 for services provided over our cap contracts amount. The first is early intervention, which, as Dana mentioned, the state did provide additional resources from the first year budget. So there are funds available to certainly increase that contract. Mental health contracts are all, again, increases for Aurora Social Rehabilitation Services, which is in both Perry County and Cumberland County. PA Counseling Services, which provides evaluation and treatment services for individuals with charged with sex offenses in Perry County. Thomas James, who provides that same service here at Cumberland County Prison. The Perry County Transportation Authority, and NHS Stevens Center. Stevens Center will be having increases in about 13 different programs because they're a very large provider of mental health services. The total for the ID services is $2,000. Total for the mental health services is approximately $153,800.
Any questions for Sylvia? Thank you, Sylvia. Next, I'd like to call on Linda Hollinger and Mark Adams to discuss the CCAP Unified Case in. Oh, Linda's not here. Oh, there she is.
We get the paperwork, so I'll just volunteer. Good morning, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the capital project that was approved and the funding that was approved through records improvement to support the Unified Case Management Public Defender module. The total cost for the contract was $19,379, and that's with CCAP. To piggyback along with the DA module and the adult probation module of the UCN project.
And records improvement fund is.
Records improvement fund, and all of it, correct.
Thank you, Mark. Next, I'd like to call on Jason Bureau to discuss the telephone, and then, yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is another project out of the Workers Improvement Fund as well. And you guys approved, this is for the contract that stems from that agreement. And if you want some background on that, I can give that to you. But it's for the $41,000 two modules, barcode scanning, and barcode scanning module. This is the contract.
Thank you, Jason. That's all I'm aware of.
Thank you. Shively, number 9, discussion of resolution 2015-15 regarding the approving of revised 911 telephone access plan for residents of Cumberland County, AKA the triennial plan, and transmit a letter to Richard J. Flynn Jr., Director of the PEMA.
In short terms, it's the 3-year required legislated triennial 911 plan. Every 3 years needs to be updated in your concurrence to submit the final draft to PEMA and the Public Utility Commission for their approval. Basically, it outlines any changes that we've had in the last 3 years, equipment, systems, also lays the groundwork and substantiates the need for the funding we receive through the state. So pretty critical, and I believe you should have received a copy if you wanted to look through that. But the highlighted changes are the changes in equipment needs, as well as the continual reduction of landline phones. Over the last 3 years, we saw a decrease of 32,619 phone lines. So we have 60,881 remaining. Any questions?
Any questions for Bob?
Well, the resolution still reflects the existing fees. If that changes before the end of the month, if the legislature enacts the new fees, will that then we have to come back and redo this?
We probably will not, because it'll be, I'm not sure if they've updated it at PEMA at the state level or not, but probably not, and will be updated then on the 3 years from now on the update. So,
All right, well, can we check into that? Because I really would like to know, we're setting the rate here for the next 3 years.
oh, no, I don't think, no. Well, I would check.
Well, there's a look, it says here that we have an ordinance.
Yeah, we'll check.
Okay. I just think before we act to approve this, we gotta know whether or not we're tying our hands.
Bob, you think you can have that by Monday? Thank you. Any other questions for Bob?
Thanks, Bob.
Item number 10, John Loft, discussion resolution 2015-16, delegating limited authority to the Director of Facilities Management to approve certain change orders for county maintenance, repair, and construction projects.
Yeah, Commissioners, this is a request for a resolution to allow the Director of Facilities to approve and sign change orders during projects. It will avoid stopping a project, having the contractor cool off, and come back on site. That's what it is.
Yeah,
But I thought we did. I thought, or was that strictly limited to
That was limited
specific
to
projects?
rehab. That was limited to
Okay,
rehab.
so this
So
would then be
a blanket.
sort of an umbrella for, not to exceed an amount, and I think that we
Seven.
looked at that for that. So,
What's the amount, John?
7,000.
7, okay.
and John discussed this with Keith and myself, and we were struggling with
Well,
it.
it said we've done it before for projects, so now it'll just be
It
sort
makes a lot
of
of
in
sense.
place. Okay.
Thanks, John, and while you're up, let's move on to item number 11. Discussion of the CNRC Tower 4-floor refurbishing project.
This has to do with the beds and the cell, the 8 beds on the 4th floor. Once that's accomplished, there really will not require any renovation, to the best of our knowledge. The most we'll be spending is probably about $1,000 if we have to install locks on some of the doors to allow HIPAA files and things like that to be in secure areas. We have a lot of items that are in storage right now in pods and different locations throughout the county. And once the beds are sold, we will be able to store stuff and use the 4th floor as a storage area. And we will not know until we submit a change of use policy, a request to the life safety, if there'll be any other costs associated, but we're not expecting any major changes. But we won't know until they come in and review and say, hey, this is what you need, or this is what you don't need, or this is approved. And we had a preliminary look at it, and we don't think there's going to be a whole lot of expense involved, except for possibly some hardware issues and things of that nature.
Any questions for
John,
John?
and this will reduce some of the other storage costs that we currently have?
Yes. The pods, we'll be able to get rid of all the pods and stop storing stuff in the pods. Also, we have item storage in the archive area, and we need that area up there for other space allocation issues that we're working on right now. We moved those down there. They were stored in the rehab basement area, and we moved them down there for the rehab project in hopes that we would move them back to the 4th floor and use that as a storage area.
Okay, so John, as far as you know, the cost will be minimal.
Cost would be minimal.
Thank you. We're gonna call up John Belcoat here. Talk about the sale, the contract for the sale of the beds.
John Belka.
Hey, John, you're on speakerphone at the workshop meeting, and we're ready to go on item number 12, which is discussion authorizing advertising for request for proposal for the sale of 8 skilled nursing beds located at the CNRC. So you and Keith.
Okay, Keith, you want me to take the lead on this?
Please.
Okay. As Larry said, we have a proposal for 8 beds that are located presently up on the 4th floor tower, which we have in essence in operation, but we're not using them. It would be impractical for us to use them. We've talked in the past about the need for creating a storage area up there. Keith and I collaborated on an RFP for this, and we have a minimum bid of $25,000 per bed. The timing to put this out is good right now because we have another RFP that's out with another county, and one of the bidders, who's a local attorney that's representing the nursing home group, gave their RFP to our county. They indicated that they have access to 8 beds, and we're pursuing that option. So we already know that there's one bidder, and judging from their offer, it looks like a pretty fair bid for the bed. So I do believe that we'll have bidders. And this bidder in particular has an agreement, a signed written agreement with the Commonwealth that allows them to purchase up to 77 beds. So there would be no possibility of Department of Human Services, mixing the deal and putting it into appeal. It's probably a very, very good possibility that the deal could go through.
All right, Chief, do you have anything to add?
I don't.
Is there any questions for John?
Just I would like to, John, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Just for edification, just to clarify again, these are currently beds that are not needed or not in use. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And this would reduce our complement at the nursing home, our total beds down from, what's the number again, 290 or
290 to 282.
to 282, all right?
Correct.
And this has no impact on existing residents or staff whatsoever, is that correct?
That's correct. Nobody will be losing their job over this, and no residents are affected.
Okay. And, but essentially, we would be able to continue to meet the needs into the foreseeable future with respect to beds at our nursing homes, is that correct?
Could you ask that question again?
With this reduction, we would continue to be able to meet the needs of the residents of Cumberland County with respect to nursing home beds at our nursing facility.
Yes, that's my belief.
Thanks, John.
All right.
Any other questions for John?
Oh, and we're looking to gain, essentially a $25,000 bed, a significant
That's
amount
correct.
of additional revenue for the facility.
Right.
Which is,
All right.
thank you.
Any other questions for John or Keith Feltus? Thank you. So
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Take care. Let's move on to item number 13, purchase owner discussion of bid results for the Cumberland County's 2015 bridge maintenance repairs project.
Commissioners, we received bids for our 2015 maintenance contract on June 3rd. We had 3 bidders, Lobar Associates from Dillsburg, Clearwater Construction from Mercer, and Bill Anskis Company from Elysburg. Bids range from a low of $537,239 to a high of $928,257. So, first question obviously is why the disparity in bids? Keep in mind this is a maintenance contract. So with our maintenance, a lot of times you'll see items that are in here like flushing the deck, mobilization, maintenance and protection of traffic. Issues like that sometimes are very tough to bid. Removal of debris, you can go out and look at it. It's not like a traditional construction contract where you say, we're going to replace a certain square footage of deck. We're going to order a certain quantity of steel for I-beams, which is very definitive. You can go out and look at specs and then pull those. So I think that's why you're seeing the disparity. Lobar Associates is the lowest responsible bidder. HRG and our solicitor have looked at the bids. Their bid is $537,239.15. I think when you look at their bid too in comparison to the other, one element that was much lower for them is mobilization, which is getting their folks here. If you look at the work, it is spread out through Cumberland County on 8 different bridges. They're in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania, so I think they're a lot closer than some of the other contractors. So that line item, I think you'll see a lot of discrepancy there. In some cases, the other bidders were 4 to 5 times the cost for mobilization. So it would be our recommendation Monday to award the low bid to Lobar Associates in the amount specified.
Is there an emergency response clause in that? When you talked about debris and stuff, in other words, does that also include an emergency response that a catastrophic event has happened on a bridge? Is that
Yeah,
still
so-
out there?
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at that, Barbara. When we have an event, a big flood, I send out a bridge engineer, I'll go out and look at and see if there's any debris that really needs to be removed immediately. If there is debris immediately, we'll take it out then under an emergency type contract. In this case, there's some debris that's accumulated, it's not an imminent threat to the bridge or adjacent property owners, so we take it out under a contract like this.
And the response to a accident, a crash that causes the bridge to have damage.
Same thing, same thing.
Okay.
Yep. As soon as we were aware of accidents, HRG's out, or I'll go out, take a look, and then we make a decision there whether repairs or closure needs to happen immediately, or it can wait for some of the maintenance contract. You'll look and you'll see these 8 bridges are ones that aren't slated for replacement. This is the maintenance and repair aspect of our capital improvement plan. See, it's almost, over $500,000. If you look at our revenue streams, without the $5 registration fee, we're looking at about $330,000 for liquid fuels, about $300,000 for Marcellus Shale. There are big ones. There's $600,000. If we didn't have the $5 registration fee, that $600,000 would have to pay for this and our 4 replacement projects that are going on right now. So when you look at it, the money simply doesn't add up. And I think that's why the $5 registration fee has been so key and enables us to do this proactive maintenance in addition to our replacement projects. If we don't do this now, we're going to see down the road, we'll see the impacts of this with bridge postings and also bridge closures later on. So I think we're hitting our bridge problem from both ends. From the preventative step up front with the maintenance, but also on the other side with some of the issues that really need to be replaced and the bridges need to be replaced.
It's important to note that many Franklin County residents are happily contributing their $5 registration fee.
What is the status of that? Is that for real? PennDOT made a mistake?
So we're checking on that, Commissioner Rhodes. So I did talk to PennDOT this week. We have some early estimates back of the revenue we're seeing from the $5 registration fee. Over 2 months, we're at about $250,000. The odd part of it is, though, that it's not in $5 increments. So it's supposed to be a $5 fee. So you think everybody would be a $5. It's not. There's actually cents involved. So there's still some discussions we need to have. The numbers we received were unaudited. So we want to see what the audited numbers look like. And we're going to check in to make sure that everyone that's paying is indeed a resident.
Well, yeah, if I understand the potential, it's the folks who live in the Franklin County section of the borough of Shepherdsburg that may be getting a $5 vehicle registration fee that this board proposed. We don't have the ability to do that, okay? And, PennDOT needs to correct if this is they're the administrators, they're the collectors, they need to refund those folks if they were charging people from outside the county, so. But anyway, we don't know yet whether that's.
Still checking.
Now, I want to ask one other question, because we got an email about it, but Wolf Bridge replacement is still moving at a snail's pace.
Absolutely, yes.
Why, what can we do? I mean, we're checking into the muscles and some other things, but, I think that was the horse, or the horse bridge, right? We did a study. Is there anything else we can do to expedite, this project? Because I still think that we're back talking, about the historical preservation, all that kind of stuff. We did that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, sure.
Any thoughts on what?
Yeah, sure. So where we're at on that project, we are moving ahead. We have the feasibility component of that project is done. So we have concurrence from FHWA and Historic Museum Commission that we can't rehabilitate that bridge, that it needs to be removed. Now we need to move on and talk about mitigation of that historic resource. We've had a lot of discussion on it. We've involved Middlesex Township, a lot of the residents. I think we're delivering that message again to PHMC, that we haven't seen any interest in local ownership of the township or any residents moving forward, that we need to expedite that piece of the process. So I think for the residents that are out there, if they're frustrated like we are, continue to let Middlesex Township know, continue to let your local elected officials know that really what we're looking for here is a modern 2-lane bridge so that we can get the mobility back for our residents.
So if the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission agrees that we should, have the replacement bridge, right? Then why can't they figure out what to do with the other bridge while the other one's being, constructed? I mean, why do we have to hold up the whole thing, again, on another discussion of who's interested in acquiring the bridge? I just don't understand how the bureaucracy works, sometimes.
Yeah, I wish I knew too, Jim. We have a meeting later here in June with our staff, PHMC, and the township to discuss the mitigation issues.
if there is any light at the end of the tunnel, at our MPO meeting, HATS meeting last Friday, the representative from FHWA did bring up that they are seeing issues with the feasibility study process, and they're looking internally at ways they can improve that. I want to work with the partners to streamline that. So that was encouraging to me to recognize that maybe we don't have the standards we need for those studies, and there's opportunities for improvement.
Kirk, who's looking at the issue? You mentioned the unaudited results, the financial results. So who's in charge of straightening that out? Because it's not a rounding problem. These are round numbers. So
I'm working with PennDOT staff.
So and PennDOT's the one who's supposedly going to fix those numbers. All right, thanks.
And is it true that the Muslims have engaged a public relations firm?
Yeah. Do we cheat our door down the line?
Do we cheat them? No.
I didn't really intend to make an analogy between snails and the freshwater mussels, but I mean, I guess we did.
You did, yeah.
All right, any other questions for Kirk?
One other quick point. There is a lot of interest in these bridges. I think for the folks in the public and residents, we don't close the bridges for their inconvenience. I think we're as interested as they are to see these projects move ahead. We put a post on Facebook this week about some other projects that are going on in the county. We have a reach of over 15,000 people with that since Monday. So you can see when these issues go out, there's a lot of interest in it. We're doing our best. There's going to be some other things that we'll be bringing forward to try and educate our residents to some of the challenges we face. And then when we're facing these challenges, we want to do all we can to expedite the process. And we're not sitting on our hands waiting for someone else to act on these issues.
Well, we just need to keep our nose up against the glass, Kirk, on these things, and keep pushing. I mean, because this, the problem is, so we talk about it, and then it's, wherever it is, it's on a pile somewhere. It gets, it gets stuck over here, and I just think that we need to do what we can to try to. You think contacting our legislators would help at all?
I think so, just so that, that there's as much, public outcry as we can see, because there's a lot of that. I mean, I get a lot of calls, we get letters, and the folks that are most impacted by this are our residents. So, if our residents are saying we'd like to see the bridge replaced, we're really not interested in historic preservation, I think that counts for something. And that voice needs to be communicated through the elected officials to the appropriate agencies.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kirk. Move on to item number 14. This is discussion of the agreements that are involved in transferring our shared ride service to the York Adams Transportation Authority. Just want to note that there is no action requested as these agreements are still under development. This is simply to sort of provide some framing and background information. It's our anticipation that once these agreements are finalized, and very close to it, that our colleagues over at Rapid Transit will sign these agreements and we bring them back in front of the commissioners here for final review and approval. We are up against the July 1st deadline to switch over from shared ride services, so this being the last workshop meeting before that time, we at least wanted to put this out there. I think what we'll do is just give a brief background. You can send the documents, you have the documents. The main document is really item B, transportation agreement. This basically sets out the terms and conditions for the transfer of the shared ride services to Rapid Transit by Cumberland County to cover the period of July 1st to December 31st, 2015. You will recall that the process of actually changing the bylaws of the York Adams Transportation Authority is a lengthy and complicated process. The plan is to have those changed so that we could actually become part of the York Adams Transportation Authority. Hopefully we'll get a byline in there somewhere, and have that in effect on a permanent basis as of the first of the year 2016. The transportation agreement basically lays out the terms and conditions of the mutual obligations between the two parties, including the handling of assets like our vehicles, and other assets involved in the maintenance of those vehicles as well. And let's see, Keith, anything you want to add on that?
No, just very briefly. The goal, of course, is to have your board's involvement with an authority by January 1, 2016. But there are two fail-safes in the agreement. In case it doesn't happen by then, there will be an extension entered into, if necessary, for purposes of achieving that goal. Obviously, if you reach the point where you don't feel it can be done, then there's a way out as well. But the idea is to eventually become part of an authority on a single regional basis.
Kirk or John, anything you'd like to add?
Been a very thorough process, thanks to Keith and all his hard work, and, for Rapid Transit, those folks have been involved. Rose and her team have been great moving ahead and showing their support, so I'm hopeful that it can move forward. I'm still confident that we'll see the savings. I'm still very confident we're gonna see service enhancements like Saturday service for our customers, and at the end of the day, I think the savings that we'll see from this really looking out to the horizon, really make sure that the system is affordable and efficient for our customers, and that's the whole reason we're in the transportation business.
John, any thoughts? Okay. Let's follow on that with what's called the assignment agreement. Keith, in our discussions about how to do this, again, for a 6-month transition period, in order to provide us with it out, we are going to be actually leasing at the price of $1 per vehicle our current vehicles to Rapid Transit for the 6-month period. Okay? And that was simply to provide a more expeditious fail-safe if we had to, for whatever reason, the agreement didn't come to fruition. It is not our anticipation, it is just Keith's good conservative approach to things. But because we are in fact leasing it, there needs to be a clarification for PennDOT that we are not creating a situation where we have dual grantees for Cumberland County's transportation funds. PennDOT requires it to be one lease agreement. Without this assignment agreement for the vehicles, it could create some ambiguity. This simply is necessary to clarify that. And then finally, we have the lease agreement for the Rittner facility, and that covers the terms, conditions, and costs for the funds that will be paid for the use of the space down at Rittner. And Dana, I'm going to ask you to sort of give us a brief thing why this is not rent, and then how we arrived at the pricing, and the fact that in discussions with that we agree to the pricing that's in that agreement.
For the first 6 months, it will be based on fair market value of the property, because we're redoing our cost allocation plan. I'll back up and say why we're redoing the cost allocation plan. We're not charging them rent, they are offsetting the actual cost. In order for it to stay a non-taxable property, we can't charge rent. It has to be just costs alone. So we've agreed to use the cost allocation plan as the conduit to recoup the cost. It will include space, which includes the debt service and interest payments, utilities, if they're using our custodial, those types of things will flow through the cost allocation plan. We will adjust annually based on that cost allocation plan with a 5% up or down trigger. If it goes beyond, if the costs go up or down beyond that 5%, we will simply kind of keep track of it and offset future increases and decreases. So as a whole, it's just, we can't charge rent, it has to be expense reimbursement.
Thank you. And John, in terms of, we're still going to have an inspection station down here at Rittner, and your mechanics will continue to work on these vehicles, yes?
Yeah, I met with Rich Farm and Rose, and we have it all set up where the type of PMs we're going to be conducting, and our mechanics are going to be inspecting both vehicles, the county vehicles and Radford vehicles. We have pretty much what I believe everything in place as far as how the garage is going to operate. The software we're going to use, we're going to be training Radford for our mechanics on their software program. We currently use All Data, and they use a different software program. The billing will be exact because with their software program, they have timers in place. As soon as the work gets pulled, the timer starts, and then when it's done, it allows us to bill them exact charges and direct costs. We've talked about purchase of parts, how that's going to be handled, and it will be a change in use as far as inspection station, but it will allow us to inspect their vehicles and all the county vehicles, and actually looking forward to working with Rabbit, and they've been very cooperative to this point.
Great. And we will still be servicing other county vehicles in that facility?
Yes.
Through our mechanics?
Yep, all the other county vehicles.
Is the inspection of other county vehicles new? Is the inspection, are we actually going to conduct inspections on all the county vehicles now?
We actually do all the inspections and emission
Now?
testing now.
All right, so we're going to continue that, we're going to continue that with the,
None of that will change.
So am I going to be able to bring my 2007 Honda Civic with me?
Well, that was asked.
You have to pay the $5 fee and register it in the state. Had to get that in there.
That's all right. If you give me that work contract, then I'll be glad to.
we do emissions inspections too.
Yes. Again, there's no action requested. We just simply want to provide you with the overview. My understanding is that the actual practical work of integrating our people with the Rabbit operation is proceeding at pace. I hear good things from Rich Farr. I've heard good things from Kirk. I think Rose has been too busy because I haven't heard from her, but that's a good sign. And that all the sort of practical elements are leading to us being able to make that switch over in a seamless fashion on July 1st. Obviously, you want the documents in place, but again, no action is requested until that point where the agreements are finalized and executed by our colleagues at Rapid. At that point, we'll bring them back to the commissioners for final review and hopefully approval. Any questions, comments?
So I gather that when it does eventually end up before the Board of Commissioners,
Yes.
it's going to be retroactive?
We'll see when we actually get the stuff back. We might be able to do it either retroactively once we have our next workshop meeting, or we might be able to do it on an interim basis and then make it official on the first workshop meeting in July. We would consult with our venerable solicitor to make sure whatever we're doing is appropriate.
That has to do with when it becomes an official inspection station too, so if July 1st, the agreements are fine, the inspection station has to be approved before we start the inspection, so, and that's why we're talking about the agreements right now.
Any other questions or comments on this? And again, I want to thank everybody who's worked really hard on pulling this together. The details are always nasty. Let's move on to item number 15. We have discussion of capital project requests. We have a return engagement from Lynette McCullough on the design and creation of the resident garden for $60,000.
Yes, this is just a request for design and creation of the resident garden between the admin wing and the C wing for the residents. This would be using the funding portion, a small portion of the funding that we have received from the endowment in 2014. The project, the pricing on this is just purely an estimate. We're projecting maybe between $2,000 and $5,000 for the design, and then $50 to $55 for the creation. But those are, until we get into the project, we do not know how realistic those costs. I would be obviously not requesting the approval of the cost, but at this point requesting the approval to be able to begin the planning process. The project would include not only just the gardens and the concrete walkways and shade and things for the residents, but also fencing and the security and the egress in case of emergency. So it is both the development of the garden as well as the security of that area. Any questions?
And on that, this came out, the fact of, the desire to create this garden came out of the process whereby the residents, their families, and other stakeholders were told, and there was a lot of discussion. This clearly was the favored option. There were other ones as well, but this was sort of the clear front runner. It is also, I think, possible that we maybe engage in volunteer labor.
That's correct.
to a
And that's
certain
where,
extent.
this is very much not a cost request. It's more of the concept of that we can pursue, and these would be very much hopefully that the upper end of the cost, because volunteer work and different programs would be wanting to be used for us.
And there may be in-kind contributions.
That is correct.
That could be given or encouraged or from the community to help and support this.
That's correct. And so like I said, this is to pursue a plan to make it competitive. That's correct.
So, just so I'm understanding, we're looking at the document here, we're not expecting to spend more than $5,000 on the design, right?
No, we are not. And very hopefully a lot less than that. That is just a true reach estimate, and then.
I mean, that design could go out to a contest.
Right.
Truly. It could simply be a community-wide contest to seek input on design.
Right.
Either from universities that are here, individuals who may wish to do that. I think there's a lot more creativity if you go into this.
That's correct.
On the creative side as opposed to the financial side.
That's correct.
So it just depends on how.
And this would be about, if you would spend up to $60,000, that's about half of the endowment, right?
No, the endowment was $215,000.
Oh, I don't know.
There was agreement to set aside a portion of that for seed money and a plaque in honor of the donor.
That's correct.
Yes, and I think there were some other things.
217.
215 plus the two that we received, 217.
217,000, okay.
And
So there is a significant amount of money left over from the endowment that would be available for utilization in the future.
That's correct.
Okay. But I just, Commissioner Cross essentially hit the nail on the head here. What I was worried about when I saw the 60,000 is I was hoping that we weren't going to expend that much on, the design, so that this is actually to complete the project. We're talking about up to no more than 60,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood.
That's correct.
And maybe a lot less.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Lynette? Oh, Julie, so. All right, now I think the readily identifiable Ryan Hamilton from Public Safety. Hear about the XCAD silent dispatch capital request for $401,434.
Okay, thank you, good morning. The project we have in front of you for today is a direct product of the External Advisory Board, which represents all the emergency services community. Along with the CAD upgrade project, we have the silent dispatch, we have WebCAD, and also some reporting system interfaces that we feel will enhance responder capabilities, as well as streamline operations and create dispatcher availability as well. We would like to devote a portion of our savings to the reorganization of the Department of Public Safety, which over a 3-year period equals $920,000, and that's salary only, no benefits, to fund the project. Currently, we have 36 different agencies that have expressed interest
in using the silent dispatch solution, which equals about 225 devices. So this whole project is really growing motivation and interest and buy-in. And we expect that to grow as we move on. So with your blessing on Monday, we're excited to hopefully move the project forward.
And that the responses will also show that people are willing to engage themselves in the cost sharing.
Yes, part of the survey that went out, we asked them, A, if they'd be interested in using the solution, B, how many devices would they want to use, and 3, if they'd be willing to pay a portion for that. And we made it a range anywhere from $20 to $30 per device per year. So it wasn't something designed to break anybody's budget, but yet, just add additional buy-in for the product. And everybody so far has, agreed.
And it is eligible for wireless.
Yes.
If we get it, ever.
Right, exactly.
And how much we get.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
And again, just to restate what's been stated before, this allows us to automate between 40 and 60% of the transactions that are currently handled by through person-to-person contact. That would free up our staff to be able to spend more time on true emergencies that require direct human involvement. These are the silent dispatch system covers those essential but non-emergency communications, so that we know where the assets are, i.e. where our first responders are located, and that there's clearly savings on the county side, on the municipality, borough, and township side. There's also significant benefits as well in terms of providing better information, more efficient use of their people, and deploying to anything that occurs not only within their own jurisdiction, but also neighboring jurisdictions. This was presented to the Municipal Advisory Board, amongst others, as well as our own External Advisory Board. And there seems, and there is, a lot of support for this as a mutually beneficial project.
Well, and the chiefs too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, police chiefs, fire chiefs, EMS, we touched everyone.
So are you saying your participation rate among those that were solicited is virtually 100%?
We're not at 100% yet. I was pretty astounded by just a week and a half of the survey being out for getting that kind of reply. So moving forward, I think those numbers are only going to go up. Yeah.
All those who replied favorably, we're still trying to get the rest of it very quickly.
Yes, yes. We're probably over 90% on police department participation. Approaching 40 to 50% maybe on the fire. EMS is a little low right now. I think they're still trying to figure out how it's going to work. And their notice got sent out a little later. There was an email problem, so I anticipate that to grow as well.
Breakdown helps.
Any questions for Brian? Okay. And again, nice pastel thing going there between you guys, and then you as well. So kudos to the fashionistas for public safety. Thank you. Let's move on to Commissioner Liaison reports.
I only have a few things. Ag Science Day Camp is going to be held June the 23rd to the 24th, sponsored by Penn State Extension and Cumberland County 4-H, which is a great program. Conservation District's going to meet next Tuesday, and from our Director of Veterans Affairs, I'd like to announce that the Lebanon Valley Medical Center is going to hold a town hall meeting tonight, the 18th of June, beginning at 6:30 at the VFW Post 477 on West Trimble Road. If anyone is interested in attending that, I know that program is going to be worthwhile. On 911, the House bill, most have been following that. It came out of the Senate with a unanimous vote. It is now moved over to the House with a couple of weeks left for a decision there. And the pricing that came out was the $1.65 and then an opportunity, if any county is so interested, to levy their own $52. The concern at the House, of course, is the status of Allentown and Bethlehem being considered counties and running their own PSAs. So we'll see where the House takes us, and if in fact it does not sunset, as it is scheduled to do. I think that's all I've got.
Questions or comments for Commissioner Cross? Commissioner Herzog?
Okay, our county's Agricultural Land Preservation Board met last Wednesday, and it was reported that with the 2015 program funding and the acreage that's pending preservation in our county, that Cumberland County is on track to surpass 17,000 acres of farmland preserved in perpetuity since the inception of the program over a quarter century ago. Statewide, since the beginning of the program, that was authorized by the General Assembly and has been supported by every administration since it was first authorized in 1989, over 500,000 acres of farmland have been preserved throughout Pennsylvania. Brought up for discussion, meanwhile, at the board meeting was a copy of a letter that was written by our State Secretary of Agriculture, Gus Redding, to officials at the federal United States Department of Agriculture, aimed at rectifying current inconsistencies between the state and federal farmland preservation programs. And unless and until there is a meeting of the minds as it stands, Pennsylvania stands to lose all of its fair share of federal funds for farmland preservation. And we're not talking about peanuts here. Since the federal program was started in 1996, Pennsylvania has received $33 million in federal funds to help bolster our state's farmland preservation efforts. Cumberland County to date, and most notably in the past couple of years, has received $3.1 million in federal funds to supplement our farmland preservation program. The Preservation Board has agreed to send a letter to our federal lawmakers, Congressman Barletta, Congressman Perry, Senators Casey, and Senator Toomey, requesting their intervention. And I believe that it might be something that this board might also want to consider, since it's patently unfair to Cumberland counties and all of Pennsylvania's taxpayers not to receive back our fair share of dollars that we send to Washington for this important program. Last Friday morning, on a conference call with 11 other county commissioners from around the state, I chaired CCAP's Assessment and Taxation Committee meeting, the Resolutions Committee meeting, and in addition to the many of the previous positions the committee has taken on legislative issues, a new resolution was approved by the committee stating our opposition to any effort, whether that be via a proposed constitutional amendment or through legislation, that would weaken the standard for what constitutes an institution of purely public charity for property tax exemption purposes. The resolution also supports granting counties specific authority to seek payments in lieu of taxes from entities that are currently exempt from property taxation, and indicates our opposition to any measure that would limit, negate, or impede negotiated payments in lieu of taxes agreements. Also last Friday, I attended the county's Housing and Redevelopment Authority board meetings, where both boards approved their 2015-16 fiscal year administrative and building budgets. HUD, meanwhile, has signaled its acceptance of the utilization of an additional $250,000 to support the county's Housing Choice Voucher Program, which should enable the county to serve some additional folks who qualify and who are on the waiting list for housing rental assistance. I was also pleased Friday to join Commissioner Cross for the naturalization ceremony for Cumberland County's newest United States citizens. And Monday night, I attended the Capital Region Council of Governments meeting. Tim Soloway, Pennsylvania's new fire commissioner, was the guest speaker. He talked about ongoing efforts to encourage the retention and recruitment of active volunteer firefighters, which we know is a significant need. And one of those efforts is legislation that has been reported out of committee of the Senate. It's on the floor of the state Senate that would grant local municipalities the option of providing a local earned income tax credit to active volunteer first responders. And during my county report to Cobb, I reported that our county staff is working on the restoration of a reinvigorated Cumberland County thanks program, hopefully one that will be extended to the region to reward active volunteer first responders with discounts from participating business partners. And I don't have anything else.
Any questions or comments of Commissioner Ernst? Commissioner Eichelberg.
Okay, just briefly, HIDD, we dealt with the contracts today. The monthly meeting for this afternoon. The Planning Commission met this morning. We had an interesting refresher primer on some of the land preservation options, the various differences between ag security and clean green farmland preservation easement program. A lot of discussion, especially with the new members of the Planning Commission, rather. And that was still ongoing when Kirk and I left to come up with this meeting, so I don't have any of the committee reports that normally would be reporting out that got that far yet. So as I receive those, I'll be sure to pass along any summaries of that. Also, the monthly work plan, that was, I'll be passing that along as I do, once I receive that. As I say, that meeting was still ongoing when we left. Library met on Monday. Library System Board met on Monday. Most of the discussion centered around the consensus building project, particularly the next steps and the July 22 roundtable we're all committed to as well. Considerable discussion on that. Monica Gould, the consultant who was assisting on that, also reported out on the review that she's performing of board practices for the member libraries. So noted that there may be some bylaws changes that she would suggest, and she'll be working with them on board recruitment practices as well, so that they're all well positioned for any of the changes that we may see in terms of library practices going forward. Janelle also provided a couple of charts and a summary of comparisons between our system and the public governmental interaction with the library system vis-a-vis other third-class counties. I believe that was a topic that came up during one of the public sessions, so they've compiled some additional data on that, and I'll be providing copies to that to everybody. I think there's some of those questions that come up on an ongoing basis, so that'll have a lot of that all in one place. Let's see here. They did have some discussion regarding the success of the county's increased use of video conferencing, and they believe they would have opportunities to use that between the libraries as well. I'm pretty enthusiastic about that. The only other item I have is the EDC board meeting was this week, and there were a number of items discussed, but particularly the tax increment financing proposal that's being worked on for the Maslin site is the EDC is working with the borough on that, and they are presenting. I'm not sure if that's already in the agenda. Remember, they presented to the school district already or not. That was the priority. They're going to be putting the proposal to us for buy-in.
Yeah, Gary's coming.
So,
See us.
and one of the other major items is a lot of discussion about re-energizing the workforce development aspect. A couple of years ago, there was a task force on workforce development. It is repeatedly cited as the #1 issue that employers face in the county. EDC is looking to have an active role in that. In the past, had a workforce task group. The focus on that changed when the national economy went south for a number of years. They'd like to revisit that. Companies are back in mode of emphasizing growth potential instead of just survival. So the ECU's active discussion on how they may want to engage the new executive director of the Workforce Investment Board for South Central Pennsylvania on some ideas that would be helpful in the county. That's all I have.
Any questions or comments for Commissioner Eichelberger? Okay, let's move on to item number 17. I'd like to report of the executive session on June 10th, 2015 at 1:30 p.m. regarding personnel issues. Item 18, I'd like to request, please, an executive session for personnel issues. Is there any other business? And we are adjourned.